Hello everyone, and today we're going to be having another look at one of the most prominent decks on the channel, the Buster Blader deck here. We are still playing the Rose Synchro version of it after sort of bouncing between the two versions that we have built on the channel, the two competitive versions. This one I'm liking significantly more, simply because of its lack of bricks. Now what does the deck do? Again, if you've seen the last video, you'll know how the majority of this works. We have made a few alterations in order to deal with the changing meta. Since our last video, Flounderies and the Adventure Engine have entered the game, and they're giving this deck some trouble. I'll be perfectly honest with you, they do make it significantly harder for this deck to compete, unfortunately, but that doesn't mean we're out of the game, not by any stretch of the imagination. We simply have to play a few new tricks to keep up, essentially. So what's the idea of it? Again, I'll explain briefly for anyone who hasn't seen the previous videos, but what you'll want to do is summon the Buster Dragon and the Buster Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. That will be an effective skill drain during your opponent's turn, locking up all of their monsters. And you also want to go into your Synchro combos. You want to go in to summon out a Borreload Savage Dragon, a level 10 Synchro, as well as your Herald of Arclight, as well as your Buster Lock, all on your first turn. That's your ultimate objective, and can be achieved quite consistently with this version of the deck. To be perfectly honest, I'm very impressed. I have made changes here and there. I'll be going over a detailed deck profile at the end, card by card, so stay tuned for that, and do watch the gameplay to see how the actual engine works, to keep track of the combos and actually see sort of what it's good against, and more importantly what it's weak against, so that if you find a better way of building it, you can let me know, and then we can sort of build the deck together. So as always, if you like what you're seeing and you want to see any more, feel free to subscribe. It's completely free, doesn't cost you anything, and you can throw your suggestions down below for anything you do want me to cover, or any improvements you have in mind that might work a little bit better for this. Like I said, we do have sort of two primary versions of this deck on the channel. We have this version, the Rose Synchro version, as well as the pure Tenyi version that specializes more so, instead of having, you know, big crazy synchro plays, it more so wants to get out the artifact Dagda and DPE. So it wants to do the artifact Scythe Lock with DPE, as well as your Buster Dragon combo. So that's where that deck wants to go. Very powerful as well. The two of them, I would say, are very close to each other. I think this one is a bit more fun to play though, purely because there are no bricks. That's the big thing. I don't like playing the DPE engine because if I draw Dasher and Celestial, it just annoys me. So not having to worry about that with this version does make it, in my opinion, a little bit more enjoyable. But watch both, try both, see what you like, and take it from there. But that's pretty much all I have to say here at the start, so let's get into game number 1. Alright, getting into game number 1 here. We don't exactly have the greatest looking hand here for going first, but after a Pot of Prosperity showing us our Ascended Thunder, we have the perfect hand. This is exactly what you want to be seeing. Any of your level 7s, as well as your Red Rose Dragon, is full combo. So this is, we did draw the Basil Rose Shoot, which in theory is a bad draw because you would rather search it, but to be honest, it ends up working out, so it's fine. Special summon out the Ascended of Thunder using its effect, and we'll normal summon our Buster Whelp to search our deck for Prologue. We're going to use the Basil Rose Shoot to special summon out the Red Rose Dragon, to use it and our Ascended of Thunder to go into Baron de Fleur. Red Rose Dragon will summon the Rox Rose Dragon, grabbing another Red Rose Dragon from our deck. Using the two monsters on the field, we go into our Crystron Hakifibrax, which will summon out Jet Synchron from our deck. Jet Synchron and the Hakifibrax go into the Auroradon. Now we have the Baron de Fleur as well as the Auroradon combo, plus our full Buster Blader setup. All you need is the trap card and a dragon in your graveyard. We're going to tribute 2 to summon out the O-Lion. O-Lion and our 2 tokens go into the Borreload Savage Dragon. We also get another token off of our O-Lion. So basically, we're going to boost up our Savage Dragon to over 4k here. We're going to summon Jet Synchron again from the graveyard, discarding the Red Rose Dragon that we searched for, which what makes it handy. Using it in our remaining token, we go into the Herald of Arclight and pass. So we have 3 Omni Negates on the board, and we have a on-demand skill drain, which is insane. We even had the Lightning Storm if we happen to be going second. Now, normally you would use the Prologue of Destruction in the standby phase, or even the draw phase, to set up your block like right from the beginning so your opponent doesn't get any ideas. But what we're doing is because we have the Herald of Arclight up, if we were to activate it now, the materials would be sent to, well, would be banished instead of being sent to the graveyard. So the Herald of the Arclight does, in a sense, clash a little bit with the primary engine of the deck, but given that the Herald of Arclight is an omni-negate and attributes itself to as cost, you just need to wait until you get an opportunity to activate it. Now, with the Madolche Salon here, what we're going to do is, we had the idea of holding off on the Herald of the Arclight just for now, because it seemed to be a very solid counter to Madolche. We're going to leave it to last, use a Borreload Savage Dragon to negate the Salon. We're going to use Baron de Fleur to negate this Magellini, or whatever it's pronounced. I probably mispronounced that, but fight me, I guess. So that's 2 negates down already. Opponent's got 4 cards left in hand, shuffles that back in deck. Our opponent goes for Small World. That's more than enough encouragement we need. And yes, we are being a bunch of yes clickers. We're just spamming negates. But again, he's playing a few powerful cards. We negate the Small World using Herald of Arclight. And then upon the resolution of the negation, we're going to then use our prologue, send the Buster Blader and the memories to the graveyard, activate the memories in the grave, banish it to conduct a fusion summon. So we're going to fusion summon out the Buster Blader, the Dragon Destroyer Swordsman, and then we're going to special summon our Buster Dragon. All of our opponent's monsters are now dragons, and all of their dragons are negated. Opponent summons a monster, realizes he can't use its effect, and folds from there. So that is pretty much the ideal setup. You can emulate a board like that with a lot of different hands, but your ideal setup is prologue alongside the Red Rose Dragon and the Ascendant, any of your level 7s, which sounds inconsistent, but with you playing so many different ways to get to prologue, the Whelp, Trap Trick, 3 copies of prologue itself, Pot of Prosperity as well, being able to help you grab any piece of that you're missing, it's not inconsistent. I wouldn't say it's inconsistent by any stretch of the imagination. The only difference is whenever you don't have the Red Rose Dragon, you aren't able to extend into Baron de Fleur on top of the board. You can still put out your Savage Dragon, you can still put up Herald of Arclight, you can still put up your Buster Lock, but having that level 7 with the Red Rose Dragon does help a lot in putting up an additional negate with that Baron de Fleur, but definitely not necessary. You can set up the rest of the board perfectly fine without it, and you'll be able to win from there, essentially. Very, very powerful board. Let's get into game number 2. Alright, getting into game number 2 here. Looking at our hand, we have 2 summonable level 7s. We ended up cutting the Ishuna just for another Vishuda whenever in the final build. Now, we do make a mistake here. Anyone who watched the last video will know that we made a mistake. Normally, you're supposed to summon number 42 to this zone here to get 4 tokens and not 5. Now, I know what you're thinking. Less tokens, how could that possibly be beneficial? And the reason that would be beneficial is that right now, if we were to summon the Auroradon, we would only have 2 available monster zones instead of 3. That means no Auroradon tokens, and that's bad. Whereas if we had to summon the Tomahawk here to this zone and then had 4 tokens, we would have 3 available zones, summon the Auroradon, full field of tokens to then play around with. So we did shoot ourselves in the foot just a little bit, but we can compensate for it. So we're going to use the 2 monsters here to go into the Protector Whelp. The Protector Whelp will send the Whelp to the graveyard. That satisfies the condition of having a dragon for our prologue, which we already have. We're going to go into the Auroradon now, summoning out 3 Mecha Phantom Beast tokens, tribute itself and the Battle Eagle token to go for Olion. Olion into the Borreload Savage Dragon. Unfortunately, we do not have Jet Synchron here to go into the additional plays. We're going to get another token from our Olion, summon it onto the field, and our Borreload Savage Dragon will get its boost, set to and pass. So not quite as clean as the initial board. The main reason being we didn't have a tuner, and we did mess up our Battle Eagle play, but it is what it is. It didn't affect us too negatively in the end. Our opponent's going to go for Reinforcements of the Army. We're going to take the initiative here and go for Prologue of the Destruction Swordsman. Now, our opponent messed up here. Normally, Call by the Grave is the one of the big counters to this deck because they can banish your Buster Blader from the graveyard. Our opponent's smart enough to realize that. Unfortunately, they're not smart enough to understand Chain Link Resolution. So we chain then to his Call by the Grave our Destruction Sword Memories. That means on Chain Link 4, our Buster Blader and our Dragon are already banished for our fusion summon, so Chain Link 3, his Call by the Grave has no effect. It doesn't do anything. We also get our Buster Dragon, so now we have our full skill drain setup as well as the Savage Dragon on the field. We still have Trap Trick, which is going to be able to grab us an infinite impermanence from the deck, and it's going to be activatable this turn. Our opponent realizes that they know full well they cannot keep up with what we're doing. We would have an Omni Negate with the Savage Dragon. We would have a infinite impermanence as well, which is going to be very handy for negating a column of cards. The thing about Trap Trick as well is you can choose what column that goes into, and given that it can be used on that turn, you can actively respond to your opponent's spells and traps, which is amazing. I believe that may be in the next replay. If it's not, I'll talk about it at the end. But Trap Trick's a phenomenal card, and again, suboptimal plays leading to a game-ending board. Amazing to see. Let's get into game number 3. Alrighty, game number 3. Here we again have a pretty decent hand. We're going to go for Vishuda and the Ascendant of Thunder off the bat. We're going to go into our Protector Whelp. The reason we go into the Protector Whelp and not our Tomahawk is we felt a delay right there whenever we had... when we activated the Vishuda. We felt a delay, but we did not feel a delay on the summon of the Ascendant of Thunder, so I believed our opponent had Gamma in his hand. Knowing how to read delays is important. It's difficult for me to show you in a replay, but being able to read the delays in a game is very, very important to predict what types of hand traps your opponent might have. I believed him to have a Gamma, so I summoned out the Protector Whelp, expecting him to Gamma and destroy this. By destroying this, he will put a dragon in our graveyard, satisfying the conditions for prologue, so it would have been beneficial to us actually. But he doesn't Gamma us. We're able to send a dragon to the graveyard, set 3 and pass. I don't know if we over-predicted there or what that delay could possibly have been. It may well have been a Gamma and he just decided the Protector wasn't a big enough threat, which is valid. That's fair. But we're going to go into our full plays anyway. In the draw phase, send the Buster Blader, send the memories, activate the memories, fusion summon out our Destroyer Swordsman, and then special summon the Buster Dragon. Full skill drain on our opponent's board. They cannot use monster effects, but the Adventure Engine has the perfect out to this board. And he summons out his Griffin. His Griffin, of course, can't be activated, but the Dracoback, being a spell card, is what's going to really put a massive thorn into this deck side. Now, our opponent discards the Dracoback and equips it onto his token. This is where we use what I briefly described in the last game. We activate Trap Trick now before he can ignition activate the Dracoback. We're going to banish an impermanence to set an impermanence in the column with the Dracoback, preemptively activated, negate the Griffin Rider, so now his Dracoback is negated. That is what I was describing last game. You can actively respond to the Adventure Engine using your Trap Trick if you use it intelligently with Imperm. Unfortunately, our opponent also had Vishuda. Vishuda, of course, being the other big counter to this deck, so he bounces back our Buster Blader, which is unfortunate. Starts going into some crazy plays here, gets the Denglong. Denglong grabs the 9 pillars, adds it to his hand. He's going to send the Vishuda Graveyard, boost his level to 7. Why he did that, I'm not sure. He's going to add the Vishuda back to his hand using the Adhara. I'm not sure if he should have sent an Adhara or what his plan was. He swings into our Protector Whelp. We're going to protect our Protector with Prologue in the graveyard by banishing it. And he passes turn back to us. I do believe he messed up by sending the Vishuda and not the Adhara, but it is what it is. We summon our... now again, we're being very, very careful here. We know this is the 9 pillars, which is a counter trap. So if we were to activate our Abyss, Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss, or the effect of any card really, then it will get negated, and because it is a counter trap, we cannot respond to that negate. That does put us in a bit of a rough spot. We do need to be aware of it. Now, the reason we went into the Abyss Dragon instead of, say, going into Hulk is specifically for that reason. If we went into Hulk and he was able to negate us, that would be game over automatically because our Buster Dragon was getting destroyed at the end of that turn. We're just going to summon the Abyss Dragon and use it as a beater for the sort of for now, hoping he doesn't have a way to get rid of it. He's going to use Fateful Adventure here to grab the Enchantress, and again discard the Enchantress afterwards to grab another Rite of Aramasir. That is again a massive problem. We know he has a Vishuda in the graveyard from the previous turn, so the Rite of Aramasir gives him the token. His Vishuda in the graveyard will bounce back our Abyss. We're going to chain to that the effect. We're going to force him to bounce something back to negate, putting him in a rough spot. He uses the Griffin Rider. Luckily, we can chain then infinite impermanence to that Griffin Rider, and now he has to use the 9 pillars. So we've essentially for the cost of 1 imperm, because we were losing our Abyss Dragon anyway. For 1 imperm, we've gotten rid of Denglong, the Griffin Raider, and the 9 Pillars. He does get to summon a Chi Wen, but that's, you know, neither here nor there. Denglong will summon the Chi Wen from the deck, which isn't great, but it's also not terrible. Summons Griffin Raider from hand, Griffin Raider and the Red Rose Dragon. He had the Red Rose Dragon, which is rough. Goes in the Baron de Fleur, Rocks Rose Dragon comes out from the deck, grabs the Basil Rose Shoot, and again, the exact same Rose Engine play we were doing. Swings in the S for 3k, swings in for 2k, and that is lethal. Unfortunately, we give it our best effort here, but the Draco Bag plus the Vishuda is a really rough thing for this deck to be dealing with. Basically, non-monster effects or things that don't activate on the field are a bit of a kryptonite to it. That's why we play the Synchro engine to try and compensate. We just couldn't pull it out on this occasion, unfortunately. But let's get into the deck profile and we'll talk about some of the choices we've made. Alright, so into the deck profile. Again, if you've seen the previous videos on Buster Blader, you'll know exactly sort of what we're looking at. I'm not going to cover it in a massive amount of detail. If you want a full massive breakdown of all of the individual engines, feel free to watch the last video on this deck. It'll be linked in the wee card thing in the corner there. You'll see it popping up. So Buster Blader, how does the Buster Blader side of the deck actually work? It is all reliant upon Prologue. You want to have Prologue on your field and either a Dragon or the Destruction Sword Memories in your graveyard. Now, your Dragon, you're playing your Whelp, you're playing the Rose Dragon engine. Any of these 7 cards or these 2, so 9 cards in total, one of those 9 needs to be in your graveyard. And if you have Prologue, that you set up. And that's not difficult at all to do. Again, you saw how easy it was in our previous games, how all of these cards are searchable. You can also, if you open up with one of your Destruction Sword Memories through your standard Aurora Dawn combos, you will get the chance to discard a card to resummon your Jet Synchron, so that's a way to put the memories in the graveyard for free. For that reason, we cut our Buster Blader itself down to 2 copies. We were playing 3 so that we could trigger the memories if we needed to, but now that we're playing the full Aurora Dawn combo, you can discard it for Jet Synchron, so that's less necessary now than it was before. So 2 copies of Buster Blader is fine, but feel free to bump it up to a 3rd if you wish. So that's basically it. How do we get to the Prologue? Whelp on normal summon will search it, Trap Trick will search it, and your Pot of Prosperity can also help you search for it. So that's pretty much the idea behind the Buster engine there. What is the goal behind it? You summon out your Buster Dragon and your Dragon Destroyer Swordsman. Buster Dragon makes all your opponent's monsters into dragons. Your Buster Blader negates all dragons. So that's grand. Now the Rose Dragon Synchro package, how does that work? Your Red Rose Dragon is your main starter. You want this guy plus any of your level 7s. You play 6 level 7s that are summonable. Technically these 2 as well if you want to use Protector Will, but we'll not complicate it. You play 6 main level 7s and you want to see the Red Rose Dragon alongside that. The Rock Rose Dragon is fine, but Red Rose is optimal. You will summon each of these. You Synchro summon in the Baron de Fleur. Red Rose Dragon, when sent to the graveyard for a Synchro summon, will summon the Rocks Rose Dragon from the deck or the hand. Rocks Rose Dragon here will search your deck for the Basil Rose Shoot. The Basil Rose Shoot will then resummon your Red Rose Dragon from the graveyard, and from there you just go into your Crystron, Hakifibrax, and Aurora Dawn plays that you saw in the gameplay. I'll not be breaking down that combo specifically because you've seen it. And that's basically how that little engine works. So it is a massive extender because not only does it single-handedly set up your Crystron Hulk, it also gives you a level 10 Synchro on top of that. So you can have your Baron de Fleur or you can have your Supreme Sovereign Cheng Ying, whichever suits you better at the time. It'll almost always be Baron de Fleur. But yeah, that's how the Rose Dragon Synchro package works. The Vishuda is the preferable over the... we initially played Ashuna, but like, it was garbage. There was no purpose to it because we aren't playing at Hara. It didn't do anything. So we took out Ashuna, played a 3rd Vishuda, and simplified a lot of the problems of the deck. So that's grand. And that is pretty much the mechanics of it. Everything else is pretty core. For our hand traps and interruptions, we're playing 11. 3 Effect Veiler, 3 Impermanence, 3 Ash Blossom, and 2 of the Lightning Storms. That particular lineup is almost entirely to stop Flowboundaries. There's not a lot of hand traps in the game that have massive amounts of effectiveness against Flowboundaries as well as other decks. There's lots of ones that are really good against Flowboundaries, but are garbage against other things. So this lineup in particular, I feel like is going to be one of the best ways at countering flow boundaries in particular, without sacrificing your overall viability and flexibility against other deck types within the metagame. So you're keeping that versatility around you, which is obviously great. We're playing Pot of Prosperity, as I said, helps you dig out your missing combo pieces. We're playing Jet Synchron and O-Line, which are both necessary for your Aurora Dawn combo. And lastly, we're playing the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword. If you manage to extend into this guy, get it into the graveyard, your Buster Dragon can equip this guy from the graveyard onto your Buster Blader monster. So long as this is face up as an equip card, your opponent cannot use their extra deck. So this is a massively devastating lock to put your opponent into. It's not overly consistent in this version of the deck. This deck does prioritize negates and the combo itself over getting this extra little bit. But again, if you're able to extend that just a touch further, this is again a very, very powerful play. And if you can get this up and running as well as the rest of your plays, it's basically a guaranteed win at that point. Moving into the extra deck, we played 2 Buster Dragon, 2 Buster Blader, just for follow-up and consistency. Whenever you're the Buster Dragon you summon off of Prologue gets destroyed during the end of the following turn, so having a second Buster Dragon is very important because your first one is going to get destroyed, so keep that in mind. A second Buster Blader, not necessary. You can cut memories down to 1, you can cut the Buster Blader down to 1. I just found that you didn't have enough follow-up to win some longer-ish games, so feel free to do whatever you want there. The Borreload Savage Dragon, Herald of Arclight, and your level 10s you saw in the gameplay with that first game. You know exactly why they're there. The Qing Ying as well as a backup. We're playing the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend, can be summoned with your Buster Dragon and any of your level 1 tuners. This guy is phenomenal against the Qing Ying matchup. Again, he's here almost entirely for this card because the deck doesn't natively have an out to the Qing Ying if he gets too large. So the Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss is very, very powerful in getting rid of this guy. Number 42 you saw in the gameplay. Linkuriboh is important because it makes your Buster Whelp into a 1-card combo basically. Summon the Buster Whelp, search for Prologue, link summon in the Linkuriboh, that bang, that's you sorted. You don't honestly use this very often in this version of it because normally you have a better play. To be honest, you have one of your level 7 extenders, you have one of your level 3s, so you'll very rarely use the Linkuriboh, but it is useful when it happens. Monk of the Tenyi, basically to make your Vishuda's bounce live more often. You don't need it, but it is handy on occasion. You could replace this with a level 8 Synchro of your choice if you wanted to. I initially was playing the Berserker of the Tenyi here. I just think Monk of the Tenyi offers more flexibility as well as spot removal, which is very important because it helps get rid of floodgates, it helps get rid of the Dracoback, for example, things like that. So bear that in mind. Crusher on Hulk for the main combos, you saw it in the gameplay. Mecha Phantom Beast Aurora Dawn for the main combos, you saw in the gameplay. And lastly, the Protector Whelp of the Destruction Swordsman. When summoned, you will send one of your Buster Blader cards from the deck to the graveyard, and if you have a Buster Blader in your hand, you can summon it as well. So if you do happen to draw into one of these guys, don't worry about it. It's not a total brick because it can be very easily summoned off of your Protector Whelp. And then not only is it a decently powerful card in, you know, taking your opponent's destroyed monsters and stopping them from using them again, it's also a level 7, so it can be used alongside some of your tuner monsters for synchro summons. So again, that's pretty much the entire deck broken down. Very, very fun deck, very powerful deck. If you do like this and you want to see other sort of rogue-ish strategies, we do a lot of Buster Blader here. I feel like I'm going to step up the amount of Buster Blader content because it is a very strong deck, and I feel like it is one of the decks that I have revolutionized is a strong word, but it's one of the decks that I feel like we've made the most progress with over, you know, a lot of other people. There's not a lot of people who make content on Buster Blader in particular, so not many people are out there trying to break the deck, but I feel like we're making some really solid progress in making this as good as it can possibly be. I don't know if we're there yet, but I feel like this is really, really freaking strong, considering the base material being Buster Blader, which naturally itself isn't all that powerful. But yeah, again, I'll not ramble. I tend to go off onto rants. So if you like what you're seeing, you want to see anything more, feel free to subscribe. Like I said, it doesn't cost you anything and it really does help me out. I would appreciate the support. And if you've got anything at all you want to see, feel free to drop it in the comments, or even hop into our Discord and notify me there, where we'll send out stream alerts for whenever we're playing on Twitch, and where we have designated channels for you to learn about any one particular deck you want. And that pretty much wraps us up, so I'll see you all in the next one.